first company I built almost died, not because of the competition, not because of the economy, but because of these 8 mistakes that I made that nearly wrecked everything. Now, if you're scaling right now and you want to grow without burning time or cash, this video is going to save you years probably. And I know there's gurus out there yelling things like, hey, mistakes are freaking essential. But I promise you, you have 10 competitors around you right now who are biting at your heels, and they're one good promotion away from overtaking you. And the seconds that you save by not getting slowed down by mistakes will determine if you succeed or if you're constantly going to be fighting to stay ahead. Because the fastest way to grow any business in any industry and in any economy is to avoid the freaking mistakes that normally slow everybody else down. So what I want to give you here is an overview of the 8 mistakes that I made scaling my first business. That way, you don't have to learn the hard way, because these were all very costly and stressful mistakes. The first one is changing software. And everyone on your team and every one of your vendors that you meet is going to tell you that you're using out-of-date software. You'll hear it every freaking year. But there's a learning curve to every new app or software. And as founders, you just don't have the time or the mental bandwidth to learn every new software that your team or your vendors or anybody else wants you to use. Now, our teams use a whole bunch of different apps to work efficiently. But when they communicate with the next level up in the company, whether that's their direct lead or a C player or you, they must use whatever app that higher department uses. The reason is because if you as the owner need to learn things like Asana and Basecamp and Trello and Monday or whatever the heck they want to use, the moment you need to learn something new just to get the same results is the moment you stop focusing on the growth of your company and everything else stalls. And your employees, your independent contractors, and your vendors all freaking work for you. You don't work for them. So it's their responsibility to communicate with you using the platforms that you use most. When anybody wants to contact me, there's only 2 options. They can either contact Emily, my assistant, who either helps them herself or brings things to me in my morning meetings with her. Or if those people are really close to me, then they just text me. Those are my 2 ways to communicate with people. So I could spend all of my time focusing on growth instead of digging through, right? Otherwise, what you've got to do is you got to log into whatever app that maybe my customer support team uses or my sales team uses or anybody else on my team uses, and then scroll through it mindlessly and then try to figure out how to find the thread that I need to reply to. My job and your job as the founder is to stay focused on growth. Now, the second mistake that I made was hiring inexperienced people instead of paying for real talent. Now, under $1 million revenue, I think most owners hire warm bodies instead of hiring real talent, mostly because talent is sometimes very, very expensive. But the most predictable way to grow any business is to bring on one rock star team member. Now, you might need to clean house a little bit, get rid of some of the people who are not pulling their weight, but without a doubt, I've gone into companies that I've invested in and brought in one great employee, and that one person ended up being the single greatest trigger point to growth that those companies ever experienced. Your job as an owner needs to include always being on the lookout for excellent talent that can get you to the next level, and then making it a no-brainer for them to join your company. The third mistake was not training leaders, because time spent developing leaders has been probably the most profitable time I've ever spent in any of my businesses. And I've said this before, but I'll spend more money on things that save me time than I will on almost anything else in business. And I'll spend more time on developing leaders than I will on almost anything else in business. And that's how we built so many successful companies, and why I currently have 12 companies in my portfolio when most people struggle to grow just one. Great leaders make a successful brand. Fourth lesson is allowing employees to stay on even after they stop performing. And that might be the absolute worst decision because it infects everyone else in your organization. The longer you allow someone to stay on your team after they stop performing, the more the rest of your team feels resentful for you for not cleaning up your mess, because that poor performer is making their job much harder. Now, if you want to see how we track performance inside of my companies and how we keep our team performing at their best and how we exit team members after they stop performing, then subscribe and search my videos on YouTube or on Instagram for the word scorecard. And you'll see the exact paperwork we use to make our teams into rock stars. The fifth lesson is not knowing what to measure, because most companies measure the wrong things. That's why they grow so slowly. Most companies measure numbers, which is what we did in my very first business, until I met a guy who's still a really great friend of mine. And he said that we needed to measure the actions that generate the numbers that we want to hit. And then reward people for taking the actions that generate those numbers. Because when you reward people for taking actions, they take more of those actions. But if you reward people just for hitting certain numbers, they tend to get creative and start doing more and more work, and then they think they deserve more money, when in reality, they freaking stop doing the few things, the few actions that generate the most growth for you. The sixth lesson that I learned was not building to sell. And I don't care if you ever plan on selling. If you're not building your company to look good to a banker to finance a sale, then you're not building a stable, profitable business. And this goes for you if you're still under $1 million a year, and it goes for you if you're already past the 10, 50, $100 million mark, whatever. It's a staple. Now, I've got a list of 12 things that we use every single time that I build or invest in another company, and I'm happy to share that with you in a future video if you want. So take a second now and comment company checklist in the comments, and I'll make that video for you, and I'll show you the full document as well. But at a minimum, you should be growing multiple reliable customer acquisition channels, strong recurring revenue with low churn, with a focus on cash flow, margin, lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, average order value, and year-over-year growth. Those are staples, and you should be focused on growing a decent team also with a 30, 60, 90-day projection and systems and automations. And again, there's far, far more, but comment company checklist now. And if we get enough people who want this, I'll make a video and I'll just give you that internal checklist. The seventh lesson that I learned was not studying my competition. Everyone on your team needs to know who your top competitors are and how much of the market share that they control and how they control it. That way your team has a clear target and unified mission to exceed your competitors' numbers. And the eighth mistake that I learned scaling my first business was not seeking advice from those who had already done what I wanted to do multiple times. Because the moment that I found a mentor who had already grown multiple companies from where I was to 9 figures was the day that everything became more predictable. Not easier, because growth always requires harder work. And if you're in this to find an easy way, it's going to be a lot longer of a process for you to become highly successful. But without a doubt, the number one most important asset in all of our past growth has consistently been the access that I have to smart people. And if you're just starting out, then that might mean reading books or watching videos like this one. But if you have some momentum, then you need to hire somebody who has a track record of doing what you want to do. And not just once, because that's called luck. Not just twice, but look for people who have achieved what you want to achieve 3, 4, 5 times or more, and then do whatever you need to do to get time with them. Listen, it's rare that I mentor companies that I'm not invested in. But if you look at our website, you'll see Club 28 and you'll see a program called Next Level. Those programs, assuming there's spots open in them, I'm not sure when you're going to be seeing this video, but those are the programs where I help other companies grow. You'll see both Club 28 and Next Level program on chrisguerriero.com. Plus, you'll see a long list of companies who have been in Club 28 or the Next Level, and you'll see how much they grew and how fast they grew. Because when you can plug in someone who's already achieved what you want to achieve, you collapse time frames and you shorten your success curve massively. Now, those were just 8 mistakes that I made scaling my first company. I probably made a whole hell of a lot more and erased them from my memory because I needed to stay sane. But all of them cost a lot of time and money to learn. And since then, I've built, I've sold, I've acquired more than a dozen companies, and I never made those mistakes again. Because after making a mistake, we find a solution, then we systematize it. So no company that I'm ever part of has to be slowed down by that mistake ever again. And that needs to be your process too. You hit a wall, you find a solution, you systematize that solution, and then the next time you see a wall like that coming up, you pull that solution out, you use it, and you break through that wall with little to no extra effort. Hope you got value from this. If you did, please subscribe. It really, really helps the algorithm. And then go to chrisguerriero.com and check out Club 28 and the Next Level program to see if there's a chance for us to work together.